Well, good afternoon. My name is Ta Foltz, but I go by TJ. I am 46 years old, and I am currently the Health and Human Services General Manager for the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs. I'm an enrolled member of the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs, but my family is also, I have blood from Suquamish, Puyallup, and Klamath Falls, so Klamath. My salary ranged based on what's written in the policy. Actually, I can tell you right here. What's written in here is anywhere between $77,000 and $127,000. That's just based on the tribal pay scale. So my particular job requires you to have a bachelor's degree in some sort of bachelor's degree. I have a bachelor's degree in human development and family science from Oregon State University, and I have a transfer degree from COCC in education, and I also have an AAOT an AA just in general studies. So I actually have 3 degrees, and I'm working on my master's degree right now for public health. I've done a lot of things within the reservation. I mean, I've worked at anywhere from ECE to the Spili newspaper at one time to working at public utilities for a lot of years, and I actually was just looking for a career change and something to do. Like many people know, I was working with kids a lot and coaching a lot, and so I thought about getting into a field where I can do that as a job. And so I approached Caroline Cruz, who was the former general manager before me, and asked her about a job that is in prevention or doing work like that. And so that was what she offered me, and 12 years later I took over as the general manager. Our purpose, in my opinion, and what I believe in since I've taken over, is to be here for the community and help the community and its members however we can. Like I mentioned earlier, we have 14 or 15 different departments underneath my branch, and so we vary from Spili to ECE to community health to seniors to the senior program, all the way to STPI, which is diabetes prevention. So I mean, I think our main focus is to really help our community and be better for our community. And if you can see some of the things our branch has done, some of the stuff we're starting to build and the things that we have in the past few years, such as the pavilion that's right outside. We have the homeless shelter, and we have the primitive supportive housing that we're a part in with the Housing Authority and some other entities within the tribe. So I really think, for me, I remind my staff that we're here for the people and we're here to work for them and to help better our community, because that's what we need in the long run. My day usually starts at bright and early, sometimes 6-7 o'clock in the morning. I get up, get to work, check my emails, usually start responding to emails. Before I took this position, I was averaging maybe 5 or 10 emails a day. Now sometimes I get 5 to 10 emails in the first 10 minutes I'm at work. So it usually entails between 7 and 8. I try to come to work and respond to everybody that's emailed me or called me or left me a message. And then as soon as 8 comes, I just go about my day. My day is planned usually weeks in advance, that I have a calendar that I have, and I follow that calendar pretty strict. So if you're not on my calendar, then, or anything's not on my calendar, I'll lose it somewhere in the back of my mind because I have so many things going on. So I'm either in Zoom or I'm in person somewhere meeting, or I'm talking with staff. Like today is a good example. We had our monthly department head meetings, where I bring all my department heads and we have conversations about what's going on in the month, what's going on from what my supervisor is telling me is happening within the tribe, and things that I want to see done between us and the tribal members and folks who, how we're benefiting the community and what we're doing. Well, I think one of the things you need to have for this position is being able to multitask and remember a lot of things, because a lot of things happen throughout the day and every day is different. So being able to understand that and being organized, I think, is another huge thing. Like I said, if you're not on my calendar, before I would never use a calendar. I just kind of went with the flow, but now everything's on my calendar. If you see my calendar's right there, and it's pretty, you can pan over there. It doesn't really show anybody anything, but you can see all the multicolors. Has a bunch of people's. It has a lot of my department heads whose calendar it is, and mine is in the blue. So you would see that my day is pretty consistent with stuff all out throughout the day. And if I'm not traveling to a meeting somewhere, then I'm usually, you want to make those connections with people, and you need to understand that whether you like it or not, sometimes you have to play nice in the sandbox with people, and sometimes that's hard to do for folks. So, and yeah, I think some of the things that I think also that I have been trying to do a better job of is making sure that I leave work at work. And like I said earlier, people know I do a lot of things outside of work. Like, I spent a lot of years coaching. I think I've been coaching for close to 20 years. So finding a balance between work and home life is something that I think takes a little bit of skill to do as well. I think one of the favoriteest things about my job is just the opportunity to make our community better. Like I said, I had a big part in getting the pavilion built out here, and I was just over there earlier today. We added a movie screen outdoors and a sound system and a projection unit. We're actually having our first movie night tomorrow night, which is going to be great for the community, I think. So, I also had a hand in writing the grant to get the bleachers for the community center, which hadn't been done since it had been built. So, again, I like to do things where it's benefiting the community as opposed to benefiting myself, and I think that's one of the biggest things. And one of the things I like the most about this job is now that I'm in a position to help inflict change for our community and for, the younger generation. That's why I'm really glad to be where I am. So, and I think I don't want to say it's one of the least favorite things that I like to do, but just having to handle multi-personalities and multiple people. I think when we're fully staffed, we have over 200 people in my branch alone. So that's 200 different people and personalities that, I interact with or could interact with daily. And just being able to understand where they're coming from and the things that they're doing and the things they're going through, I think that's my least favorite, because there's usually somewhere where you have to put out some sort of fire of some sort, whether it's a disagreement or people aren't doing this or they haven't done they haven't turned paperwork in. So again, I think those are probably one of the least favorite things I like to do. Work hard. I think that, not even just working hard, it's just getting to know people and understanding, that their steps. And, again, like I said, I started out from, I'm from here. I grew up here. I was raised here. I was raised in the what some people would call probably not the nicest part of town, but being able to face adversity and being able to just stick through it. I think everybody has their ups and downs, and I think people go through a lot of things, especially on the reservation, whether it's trauma or, family trauma, historical trauma, that generational trauma some feel. But having the opportunities and seizing those opportunities when you get the chance is one of the biggest things that I've done as an individual. Is, opportunities were shown to me and I took them, and that's what I think led me to where I am today. Because statistically, I probably wasn't meant to be here, and I am. So that's one thing I try to instill in everybody that I talk to, or kids that I've coached. I try to teach life lessons as opposed to just coaching. So it's a big difference. So yeah, I think for young kids, enjoy what you can, enjoy being young, enjoy being in school. I know that's something kids don't want to hear, but once you're out of school, you're out of school, right? You got to become an adult, and it's real life, and it's real situations. You don't necessarily, there's some parents who don't say, come, I'm going to continue to help you. Some parents you're 18, you're on your own, good luck. So I would really hope that the younger generation would cherish the opportunities similar to the opportunity you have here, being able to go out and interview folks and be a part of programs that maybe you may not have chosen to do or may not have wanted to do, but hopefully you see in the long run what you guys are doing is going to have an impact. So similar to what I like to do, create an impact. I've been doing, I've done a lot of training on my own, whether it's for my profession, as a certified prevention specialist. There's different trainings you got to go to and criteria you have to meet and a test you have to pass. And so I think having those trainings and the opportunities every 2 years for that certain certification, you have to have a certain amount of hours of continuing education units, they call them, or CEUs. And those include, anywhere from different meetings or trainings you go to, like Narcan training, or and then they actually have a spot where you have to do suicide prevention or awareness training. So again, those are the type of trainings that I like to add to my toolbox, so to speak. And I think for my particular job, some leadership training that is still in the works, but I'm still relatively new. I've only been in this job for 8 months. We have all sorts of resources. We have our behavioral health center, who has a list. They come out with a calendar of events that they do, anywhere from AA meetings to intakes and stuff that they do on their behalf for the professions that they're in. Our community wellness center, which is under me, has all sorts of youth programming and adult programming alike, where they can offer services to tribal members. And again, I think I could go through every one of my departments and figure out something that they have to offer. But I think overall, my branch does a lot of outreach and a lot of things within the community weekly, daily, weekly, monthly, where we have something going on, similar to, like I mentioned, the movie night that's happening tomorrow night. We have a track meet tonight for youth, for kids. And again, these are all things that happen within our branch that I'm fortunate enough that I get to be a part of. So I think the resources are there. It's just a matter of how do we continue to make sure we get them out to people in a manner that fits within the Health and Human Services branch. I think it's changed a lot. I think, even before my time, things were focused on, again, society tends to focus on certain things based on what's happening currently, and with the majority. And I think that the tribe and the reservation is sometimes can either be ahead of times or behind in times in certain areas. So, I know we have certain issues and things that I think that tribal leadership in the past and in the present or currently would like to see addressed. And some of those things are, suicide prevention and, alcohol awareness and MMIW or MMIP stuff that's happening, and making sure that some of those stuff are brought to the forefront. And I really think that those are kind of things that we look into as a program and as a branch, and we try to figure out how we can best support those people who are doing those efforts. I think my past, historically, like I said, I think I was, I would consider myself, or others would consider myself, a person in recovery. So, being drug and alcohol free for many, many years. I can't even tell you how long it's been. It's probably been 15 to 20 years that I've been clean and sober. And so coming from, that and realizing that the choices that I made way back then could have relatively meant that I wouldn't even be here speaking with you today if I would have continued on that road. So I think those are one of the biggest reasons why I chose to do what I do. And the kids that I've coached in the past, the impacts that I've seen and had on them. At some point I coached your mom when she was a kid, your age, so even younger than you, I think. So just having those impacts and seeing those kids grow, I think, is one of the reasons why I chose to be in this field. Sure. I think one project that I'm currently working on now actually is a warming and cooling shelter that's going to happen at the end of the road here next to the homeless shelter. And the idea behind it is to offer a space for the folks in the homeless shelter to actually be able to have some wraparound services for them, so they can see counselors or peer mentors or have prevention over there doing something with them, having community health over there and offering immunizations, or seeing a nurse or a doctor. We have a physician assistant who works in our branch And so providing those opportunities for them inside that building is going to hopefully, my goal is to have that shelter go from 24 hours a day to being an 8, like a 6 p.m. to a 7 or 8 a.m. where they can be in the shelter and then they have to be out. And then this building is going to be something that they can go to as a way to hopefully entice them and encourage them to go out and seek services and find a way to get out of the homeless shelter. So that's one of the big projects I'm working on. And like I mentioned, the pavilion was a really big project because that was a long project that took a few years, and we're still working on it today. So I mean, it's still a work in progress. So those are two really big things I can think of right now. I think for me, just seeing the people and the things that we've done as a branch, even prior to me and just being a worker and not necessarily as the general manager, I think just seeing how people's reactions are. I go back to the bleachers. I think that was a huge, as small as it seems, I think it had a huge impact on our community. And you could tell you could see through social media and people you talk to that, wow, it's great to have something as small as bleachers, but you think about how many times that gym's used throughout the year and what its purpose is. And I think to have something like that added to that gym was a huge thing for our community.
Have there been any stressful situations you were in? If so, how did you overcome it?
I think almost every day at some point people would think that this job is stressful. And like I said, there's a lot of fires you seem to have to put out every single day. So again, just finding that work-home balance life, I think, is what you need to do in order to make sure you don't lose your mind, essentially, because you could just, sometimes it's very interesting coming to work from day to day because there's always something different, and there's always, like I said, I find ways outside of work to try to stay stable or sane, I guess you would say. So like I mentioned, I have ECE, community health, which is within the IHS building, behavior health, prevention, CPS, KWSO, SPILI, the senior program, community wellness center, this building, the family resource center, which has the library in it, target case managers. I have some folks who work for emergency management, the commodities program. I'm trying to think of what else we have in here. Diabetes, social services, which helps with like the LIHEAP and the lights and that type of stuff. And I think that might be it. So I have, like I said, I think there's 14 or 15 of them that are just in my branch. So